Hey, Thomas here. We're here at MMA Columbia. Today we got an awesome video for you today. Let's say you're in a position where you're dealing with an aggressive opponent. You've probably seen the videos online where someone just gets totally mollywopped or taken down by an aggressive or bigger opponent. Well, today we got Muay Thai North American champion, former North American champion here to teach us some techniques on how to deal with an aggressive opponent. So we're gonna join Mike up on the ring here in a second. Let's do this.
All right, how to deal with an aggressive opponent. So I'm gonna give you a couple of strategies, two in particular, utilizing your footwork, and number two, using effective counter weapons that you can use to capitalize on somebody trying to basically aggressively attack you. So what we're gonna do is utilize their momentum and counter their attack. So before we get into it, the first way that we're gonna deal with it is what we call footwork, right? So your footwork is the way your feet will move in a fight. So it's really important with footwork to have your feet in a position where you're not off balance. So we talk about our footwork for fighting. I'll refer to a couple of the videos we did before, but basically we're gonna stand feet shoulder width apart, take a step back, right? And now we're gonna just have our hands up. And this is gonna be our ready position. Right? This position is really good because let's say somebody were to try to push Thomas over, his feet are wide enough so that he's got stability. Also, when you have a wide base, you're able to execute your strikes better. Rather, for example, if my feet were like this, right, and I wanted to turn and punch or knee, obviously it's really difficult because I don't have that wide foundation. Whereas if we're wide, have a nice base here, I can execute my strikes. So that's the first thing. When someone is very aggressively attacking you, you want to utilize your footwork. So with fighting, there's a couple ways to move. Obviously, we can take a step back, right? So let's move forward a little bit, and I'll demonstrate the four-directional moving. So let's get into our stance over here, right? Hands are going to be up. If we want to move back, you're going to push off your front foot, right? So you're going to push off the front foot, take a step back. You notice how we never want to have our feet in this position here. So whenever you move back, you never go step, step, right? You're always gonna go push back at the same step, same time, right? If we're moving forward, you're gonna push off the rear foot and take a step forward, right? If we move,
never going close.
Exactly, right. Because the moment someone, if you're like this, it's an opportunity for them to capitalize on your imbalance.
That's a mistake I know I make personally.
Yeah.
I mean, just hearing that right there, I just clicked my head for sure.
So if you want to move right, what you actually do is you're going to push off your left foot and move right this way, right? So let's take one more step. Step. Good.
Oh, wait, there? No.
Yeah, so see how right there, what you did is you crossed your feet, right? So as we get more advanced, there are particular situations where you do this. But when you start by ending up in this position here, you can't throw your strikes properly. So it's a bad position to be in, which is why when you're fighting, you never want to cross your feet. So if you're moving right, you're going to push off your left foot. Take a step this way. And again. Good. Now, when you move left, you want to push off your right foot and move left like this. Right? Why is this important? Well, when your opponent is rushing in on you, you want to definitely get away, right? So let's say you're rushing in on me, right? I want to step back, right? And create distance. But if I step back in a linear motion, you may just eventually catch me because I'm just moving back. So one of the key things you can do in footwork is you can sidestep, which is that sidestep that I showed you. Another thing that we can do is pivoting, right? We can pivot, changing our angle. So now, maybe we'll do it really slowly. Rather than moving back and back and back, where eventually my opponent will get to me, right? In theory, because I might have something behind me. What I could do is I might go 1, 2, and then sidestep, right? And get out of the way. So we'll demonstrate it really slowly. Why don't you come beside me and we'll practice the footwork, right? So we'll be here. So we'll be here, and all we're gonna do is take 1 step, back, 2 steps, back. Now this one here, you're gonna keep this foot in the same place. You're gonna move your right foot, swing it around, and end up here, and then push back again, right? So let's go back to this position here. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, that's tough.
Right?
Yeah, I naturally want to do the feet close together, I think from soccer and things like that.
Yeah, so it does take a little bit of practice. I know we're doing it really slow, but what happens is you're going to be able to get used to that footwork. So then when someone rushes in on you, you don't even think about it, right? Like your footwork has to be there. You can't be so busy thinking about your feet where you're not focused on your hands. So these things are really important. You have to practice it a lot, right? So at the beginning of fight training, what we actually do is we do three-minute rounds, and we just shuffle left, shuffle right, and we just practice our footwork, right? We just practice moving around. So then we're very comfortable in this stance, right? So then anytime you end up in this position here, you're gonna feel like, oh my God, this is really bad, right? So you'll never end up in that position. All right, I'll show you another way that we can avoid an opponent. What you can also do is just sidestep to this way, right? So what you're gonna do from here is you're gonna go from here, sidestep one way, and then just pivot. Okay. Right? Yeah. So let's go do it together, side by side. So you'll be here, right? Imagine someone's rushing in. You're gonna sidestep one way, and then turn. Yeah. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna come from here, right? So your foot sidesteps out, right? And then you're gonna just turn. Yeah.
Do I move this at all?
Yeah, you're gonna slide this back just a little bit to end up in that ready position again, right? I'll show you what happens here. You take a step in on me, and I'll do it really slow. I'll step here, right? And then I'll be here. So what happens here is, in theory, you're gonna be here where I can strike you, right? But you can't hit me because what we call in fighting is cutting an angle. So I've cut an angle on you. So now I can get you here all day. For example, now let's say you adjust to me, you turn, and I could adjust to you again, right? So on a higher level of fighting, you'll see a lot of really good fighters. That's what they're doing. They're gonna cut an angle, right? They're cutting, moving left, shuffling right, spinning off, because you wanna be in a position where I can cut an angle on you, right? So here, you can't hit me, right? And even though it may only be a split second, but this sidestep, boom, this one shot is gonna be a clean shot that can set me up for other strikes. All right, that's one way to deal with an aggressive opponent, which is utilizing your footwork, getting off his path. All right, this does take a lot of work. So a particular drill that I think we talked about is we're gonna work in rounds, three-minute rounds. What you're gonna do is just get into your stance, right? We talked about practicing shuffling right, shuffling left. So what you're gonna do is take 5 steps right. So we're just gonna go 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, right? And then go 5 the other way again. 4, 5. Now, once you get more comfortable with this, you can practice the one that we talked about, which is we're going to be pivoting. So you're going to sidestep 1, 2, and then spin off, right? So you can practice that. And then the last one that we practiced, remember this one's a little bit more complicated. You're going to sidestep here, and then turn over, right? So that's one way. Another way to deal with an aggressive opponent is just to execute a strike. So there are some strikes that you can use that are based in Muay Thai that are extremely lethal when you have an opponent rushing in on you because you're using their momentum, right? One of those strikes is basically a straight knee. So getting into your stance, where all you're gonna do is when an opponent rushes in on you, is you're just gonna throw a knee, right? Because they're coming in, you're gonna throw a knee, and they're gonna run into your knee as you're throwing a knee. So the knee, we refer to our how to throw a knee video, is already a devastating strike. Tons of power. It can easily, we've seen in UFC where guys' heads gets caved in, right? You can easily break someone's rib. With a guy rushing in on you like that, and you throw a really good knee, hitting in the solar plexus, he's not gonna be able to stand after a really solid shot, right? So that's one way to do it. So you get into your stance, you wait for him. If he comes in, just boom, right? Straight knee, right? Yeah, right into him, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now, in order for that to work, your knee strike has to be solid, right? Because if it's not solid, what's gonna happen is in that moment when you guys collide, your strike is gonna be negated, even though in terms of strategy, my knee strike should trump you, but let's say I don't have a really good knee, right? And I can't time it. Now you rush in, and all of a sudden, even though that tool should beat you to the punch, because you're more aggressive and my knee hasn't been trained, you'll still beat me, right? But if you refine that knee and you shadow box it or practice it on the bag enough, and you can throw it with enough confidence and power, then this move will work really well. So once again, you have to practice, right? A particular drill you can do is basically get someone with pads, and then you can throw knees on them, right? Or get on the bag. Just knees for rounds and rounds and rounds in practice. The second counter strike that you can use is what we call an uppercut elbow. So we're gonna get into our fighting stance here, and all it's gonna look like is this. He's gonna rush in on me, and I'm gonna just throw an uppercut elbow, right? So let's say you're rushing in with a big overhand right, boom, right here. I'm gonna just stay in my position. I could step in if I want, and all I'm gonna do is lift on my elbow as if I'm combing my hair and taking this pointy part and boom, hitting your opponent in the eye or the nose or the top of the head. You can go on your right hand or left hand. So I'll demonstrate on my right. So we're gonna go from here. Yeah, sure. We're gonna go boom, right here. You see how this makes impact? We'll do it again. Boom, right? Now, you can see how in this position here, Thomas is throwing his overhand right. So it's very important that I have my hand up because once again, we talked about the moment that these strikes collide, right? Even though in theory this should beat him, if my hand is down where it's like here and I throw the punch, maybe I miss him, right? It's very possible I miss him and all of a sudden his strike lands on me. Now, this situation, he will be what we call like the winner, even though my technique should theoretically trump him. So this is something you have to practice. And when you execute these strikes, know that you're in what we call like the exchange, right? Which is like the war zone. You want to make sure your hands are up, protecting yourself at all times. So you can't throw this strike like this, right?
Yeah.
There's no way. You're gonna get hit, right? So you really have to make sure chin is tucked, you ready, and then boom, it comes up hard as you protect yourself. So there you have it, a couple ways to deal with a really aggressive opponent. Number one is utilizing your footwork, getting off his path and being able to counter. Or number two, just intercepting as he's coming in, just countering with a knee. You can counter with an uppercut elbow. Now there's gonna be other weapons you can use, but these two are just my favorite because the knee and the elbow is so lethal, right? Especially that knee, if it lands really clean, you're gonna do a lot of damage to the person.
Yeah, and I know for me, the footwork was probably like my favorite option.
Yeah.
So I know it's like for quickness, but my steps are so like uncoordinated right now. So that's definitely something I'll be working on.
Yeah, for sure. When I started competing or fighting, like that's one of the big things we did was training the footwork. And it's kind of boring, to be honest. It's not fun, right? Because nobody really enjoys like shuffling left and right for 15 minutes. But it's one of those things where you got to have the foundation. Without the foundation, you can't build a big building, right? So you need to build that foundation, and your fundamentals, footworks, is the foundation.
Yeah. Awesome, man. All right, so big shout out to Mike for jumping on, sharing us those tips there for dealing with an aggressive opponent. Now, if you want to train with Mike, show him some support for jumping on the channel. Also, get in fighter shape here. Then you got to check out his program down below, Kickboxer Abs. It's one of the most popular programs that we've shared to some of our guys. Great results there. So you can check it out down in the description. Now make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications, and we'll see you in the next one.